So
Yes.
it's a it's a nice, bright, sunny morning out here in Delhi after um, a long spell of winters without any sun, and gives me an immense pleasure to be here around with all of you. At AWSAR, as we all of us know, we've been into our third or fourth year, in our fourth year, fourth edition, and hopefully we expect more and more entries as we proceed. We have received more entries, more shortlisted participants in this webinar, as we all know, and I think it's very important for us to tell you and share with you all our thoughts and answer any queries that you might have. So, with much of what has already taken has been there, I guess it's time for us to have our experts, Dr. B.K. Tyagi and Shri Kollegala Sharma ji, who are well-known science communicators, and I would say in a community where we rarely find people of their caliber, it is very important to hear from them, understand, and take up all those points that will help you provide your entries as quickly as possible. So with this, we'll also be asking our participants to resubmit their entries as quickly as possible for reasons galore, and I think it's critical that we move quickly in this direction without mm, talking more about it. We've been talking to each other. We've been there on different platforms. I think today is a time when we need to get along with the new questions that you might have, new thoughts that you might have, and few updates from our side. So without wasting any more time, I would now request Dr. Tyagi, Dr. Bharat Bhushan to take over and then continue with the proceedings of today's discussions today. So I wish all of you a very, very successful journey that you've had so far. And after you've resubmitted, I wish all of you the best, and may the best win this competition. Thank you so much. Over to Dr. Bharat Bhushan.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your kind word and encouragement. And now we will proceed further. I will request Dr. Rashmi Sharma to just give the brief insights of the AWSAR program. Rashmi, ma'am.
Namaskar and good morning to all the participants. As Dr. Nakul Parashar has already mentioned that the program was initiated 4 years back. This is the fourth year. And we have in the past, we have received more than 6,500 stories, and we have awarded 370 around 370 stories with the awards. So this year is the fourth year, and we have received 1,779 stories, out of which we have scholar stories 1,594, and postdoctoral fellows have submitted 185 stories. And stories, we have shortlisted 361 best stories based on the evaluation scores. And so congratulations to all of you, because you have crossed the first step of AWSAR competition. I will not say it is a competition. It is basically a fun and frolic activity, because you have been involved in the activity, research activity at your institutions, and you are writing about your research in peer-reviewed journals. So this is the activity which is like fun filled, and you are given an opportunity to communicate you whatever work you have been doing in your lab, to communicate to the common man. So this I say that it is a fun and frolic activity for all of you. So this is also giving a new dimension to your understanding about your research work. So because when you try to explain it to a child and or elderly, which is very young or maybe very old, apart a generation apart, so you think about the way like you should be communicating to them, you should be connecting to them. So that is how this is giving a new dimension to the research scholars, that how they can communicate their research work in easy to understand language. So to now, as you have already crossed one step ahead, and I wish that after this workshop, you will maybe add value to you whatever you have submitted earlier based on the comments or the suggestions you have been given today. And then these stories will be re-evaluated, and then again we will select the best out of these stories which you will resubmit. So best of luck to all and happy learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rasmi ma'am. So everybody is getting a query that are they are in a right meeting. So you are in a right meeting. Sorry for inconvenience, because the earlier link which was shared has limitation of 100 participants. So that's why we want to get more interactions, and we want to give opportunities to every participant. I think more than 400. So that's why we shifted to the webinar mode. And as Dr. Rashmi Sharma mentioned, this is the opportunity for the shortlisted candidates to resubmit their articles after listening to the expert. We have our renowned expert, Dr. B.K. Tyagi sir and Dr. Kollegala Sharma sir. So without taking much time, I will request Dr. Tyagi sir and Dr. Kollegala sir to take the forum and discuss further. So Tyagi sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Bharat, and good morning, Dr. Rashmi, and all our participants who has joined us today for this webinar. I think Dr. Rashmi has already told you that the at least one, so the milestone has been successfully, achieved by 361 participants, our young researchers. And now I think today's session is important in that sense, like you have to re-look at your article in the sense like the observation or the method technique which we are sharing with you, me and Dr. Kollegala Sharma. So on today's insight, you look at your story, what you have submitted, and try to integrate those thought or observation, and or first you judge yourself, and then in today's insights, which you can get from this both interaction, try to incorporate in that article, so to make it a popular article. Because so I am sharing one presentation which take you to a journey to tell you about the what popular science writing is, what our experience is while evaluating or looking at the stories which has been received from all of you, and some the one or two case study in terms of how you decide the title, then what should be your method in giving that information, and when you are writing, whether you are writing it for the newspaper or you are writing for a magazine, or you have submitted for a story, so it's more of an article form to observe. So all these things, like you are the best judge for yourself. So we are just sharing some of the observation and our experiences with all of you, and then you are the best judge, what has to be taken and what has to be rejected as per the subject which you have adopted or which you have taken in your research. So I'm sharing my screen. I think, is it uh,
Yes, sir, it is visible.
yeah, okay. So you all are now a family in terms of the AWSAR family, as we call it. You know about the objective of AWSAR, and it is the fourth year now we are evaluating. So if we look at it, like what was the idea was like sorry, whatever your research you are doing, people should know about your research, because we are living in a democratic country. We are using public money for the funding of research, and the public has a, a right to know where, in what direction their money is, the research is going on, and how their money is being utilized. The tax money is being utilized for those research. So, but if I look at from my researcher's point of view, to me, uh, the basic purpose of research for me is either it's to develop or generate a new knowledge. That means something which was not known earlier, and it may be a pure research or applied experimental, or is based on a field based survey. So if we look at the knowledge which has more theoretical value, like the research paper, if you look at of this Einstein, the theory of relativity, it has no direct impact, in fact, at that time. But over the time, the whole perception of looking at the physical world has changed after that. So that insight is now, that's why we call it a Newtonian physics and Einstein physics. After that, the entire paradigm of looking at the universe was changed. The second example, I'll tell you, the paleogeology and paleobotany. So some which has more, like adding value to the academic, from the academic point of view, in sense like the a lot of fossils of dinosaurs were discovered in Gujarat area, and later on it was found that India has the biggest, one of the biggest, dinosaurs, which was named as Rajasaurus, which was comparable to the T-Rex, which was found in America, which you might have seen in Jurassic Park film, the most dangerous and the biggest creature. So this was more of an academic adding, to our existing knowledge. But the other thing is uh, the applied, where you are as a part of your research, you are developing some product, some methodology, some technique in terms of which is adding something new in terms of doing a thing or achieving a target in terms of efficiency, energy, whatever you call it. Means like it is a something new in terms of a product or methodology. And experimental physics, sorry, this field survey means generally the scientific methodology which we are using in a pure research, we are using in social science, or where we have a so this the especially after this, the environmental science has been introduced in the research area. A lot of research is being done. Those are field based research. So that is also, the third category of, you can say, the kind of we can categorize for our convenience when we are developing a write-up. And also it is a scientist social responsibility which has been assigned very recently by our Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, that the scientists should go to the community. They should make them aware not only about their research but science and technology and the potential science and technology it holds. So this is our this was the basic objective. And so what is research is basically, if we look at it, it is a, first we are collecting data. It may be from the field or from the lab or the experiment which we are conducting. Then we sort out those data. It is arranged logically. Then it is represented visually, and now explained with a story, because we use the word, write your own story. It was not how I got into the research. The article should be about your research, because most of the story we found it was very interesting that they have they thought they have misunderstood this word, that how and they are narrating, they are explaining more or sharing their experience how they got into the research. No, That step is over. It is about purely about your research. So this, and explain with a story, that means you have to explain about your research in an interesting way. Here there are two types of, when you have to tell your story. One is you have to tell the story to your peers group, means you're writing a technical paper, that is also communication, but that is not popular communication. Popular communication is when you are talking, or you are explaining, or you are telling about your research to a common man. It remind me here a quote by Einstein. He said like, uh, I become more popular than my research, because people know me more than my theory what I have given, or for which I have been given the Nobel Prize. Then he said, if you want to do the popular science writing, or if you want to explain your research to the people, first tell it to your grandparents. If you can tell them that what you are doing, I think you are successful in and then you can talk to common people also in the same way. So this is taking a clue from that thing. What we have found, the stories which has been submitted or which has come to you, uh, crossing one level of this competition, or as Rashmi ji has said, it's not a competition. We, that doesn't mean that your stories, or all the story which are in 361 are the best stories, because it was the some evaluation was done by a mechanism, and then the averaging of marks was done. In that basis, many of those story which we have received may not be actually qualifying to be called a popular science writing, or popular story. And that's why this the method of two level. Now again we are trying to interact with you, giving our suggestion, our observation, and giving a chance to all of you to improve upon your story based on these interactions. So uh, if the research is a field based, the article generally we found that they have been written in a popular style, and comprehensible, in the sense like it make it good reading. That was the general thing which we have found. In pure hardcore research, the significant portion of the story is the description of the methodology, approach to study, and the highly technical detail and technical terminology. Because in most of the story which we have evaluated, that was the problem. In hardcore research or pure research, that instead of explaining about the research, more time, or major time, or major portion of your article, we found it was description of your methodology, approach to study, and with a highly technical word which was beyond the comprehension of common. And most of the stories were written in a first person. That is because you have to write in an impartial way, until and unless it is like you yourself is a part of experiment, or you yourself is a guinea pig in that experiment. And my word, tell your story have been misunderstood. As I told you in the beginning, the story is more of a self glorification. Well, I was a poor girl or boy, but I had a desire to do the research. So all kinds of those personal emotions has been giving about how, again, I'm into the research, not about my research. So this distinction has to be very, very clear in your mind when you are writing your story. And in many stories, the significant portion is this is only the secondary data, because or you can say the information which is already known, and the original research component is minimal, and which is in fact should be the major highlight of the story. And then in many story, the original R&D component is missing, especially where the research is not yet mature enough to arrive at the finding. Especially when a researcher is in the first year, that time, most of the time, we are doing literature review, or uh, standardizing the methodology, etc. So we may not be having enough data to support or reject our hypothesis, or what we are trying to do. So this was one of the case, and most of story were essay actually. They were written as an essay. It should not be the approach to science story written writing is what do you call it, this the enjoying science for pleasure by reading, that was missing. Or many times the news value is missing, because as I told you, research means something new which which is not already known. But if that element, that component is not there, the news value which you are breaking to the people, if it is not done in that way, then again, many times that component altogether missing. Or even if a researcher has reached to that stage, he has not utilized that approach in the story writing. And in many story, the start is excellent, but lost into the technical jargon, making it very clumsy and difficult to understand for a common man. So stories on core R&D in such cases, this if a research in journal, or if we want to limit ourselves, the uh, people of our country will be benefited by doing that kind of research, because that social connect make develop an interest in a common man immediately. If they found अरे ऐसा हो सकता है, I'll give you an example. There was a story where one of our IIT, they developed a small kit where it was a non-invasive device to detect the presence of that jaundice virus. वो होता है ना ब्लू रोविन टेस्ट जो करते हैं, उसमें हमेशा we you have to put a needle, take out a blood sample, and in most of the cases, a newly born child, especially if the child is a male child, the percentage of that infection, contacting that infection is very, very high. And just to check that level of that blue roving, all the time they have to puncture they have to take the blood from the finger. So look at a newborn child and how like invasive device are a it's amount of cruelty. So it was a great sorry, it was a great service to that category of that target group and to the entire medical community, that now they can switch over to a non-invasive device for detecting that problem in newborn child. So this kind of story, or can say the connect is necessary. Like, what is the situation? If my research is reached to that level, it will be benefiting the people in that way. It may be even the scientific community itself. Suppose you are working on a research and you standardize a protocol, or you standardize a methodology uh, which can be used. It can be a improvement over the existing methodology. That itself is a very good story to maybe that's true, that it is restricted, its usage is restricted to a certain category of people, but even then it has a news value. So it should be done in that way. And then in many cases the title of the story is given as the same problem. जो आपने रिसर्च थीसिस में सिनॉप्सिस में जो टाइटल आपने दिया है, same has been given in when in the story which you have submitted. It should not be so, because many times we use many technical word in our title, which may be comprehensible, which may be understandable, or which can be understood by your peers group, by your guide, or the people who are working in the similar area. But for me, even in that, even if you are a scientist, science is now so specialized. A life scientist may not be aware of what is happening in other physical sciences or other chemistry or even this IT. So we have to be very, very careful when we are drafting or crafting, I should say, our title. And some stories are fascinating but not yet mature, or our researcher were not able to again give or supported by sufficient data or the experimentation which they have done as a part of them, and it remained only a hypothetical conclusion. So that means it is an immature, we are still immature stage. And in many story, only a summary of the progress report of your research has been submitted. That was means no attempt to write it in a popular format has been done on our part of researcher. Sorry to say, but that is our observation. And some story have useful R&D component, but the articulation is not up to the mark. That means they have a very interesting content, uh, 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 good finding with results or product, but the writing skill is very bad. Even you cannot call it a semi-technical, but a popular level, just forget about that. But because we also, like me and other experts, are also have a science background, so they could make it out. There is a very good research has been done, very good content, which can be converted into a very good popular article. But we found that the element of popular science approach in those stories, and even in many story the dialogic form has been used, inspired by the last year's award winning stories, but the form is well suited for the R&D component which our research has been that means format is not suitable for every kind of. So here a shortcut approach has been used by some of our researchers. Even in dialogic format, the story is turning out to be a serious discussion between two people. Dialogic form is a well accepted form of some popular science writing, but there also like the what is the level of those two people who are having a dialogue. If you think you are having a dialogue with a peer group, naturally your the terminology, your vocabulary will change. So you think like you are explaining it to a person who has no science background. So this will help you in improvising on that. And and in your writing, in your thought process, you will have those, you can avoid those technical words when you talk with your peers. So this is also you have to keep in mind. You are addressing a group of people who has no science background. So this is very important. Uh, uh, and in some cases, the story appear to be the introduction of the chapter of the thesis, or sometimes it's synopsis itself. So more space is given in many stories in describing objective methodology and other technical detail, which is unnecessary concerning the context. In the sense, if you read it fully, you find that it was not necessary, because uh, uh, who is interested in that methodology? Only very small group of people, but the outcome may be of interest to a larger community. So you think that your target group is a larger community, not your peers group, and the technical content lack clarity in the write-up or is not well articulated. That's a very very uh, uh, this we found in many such stories. The research content, they were not able to come out to the popular level. Actually, if I use my vocabulary, so that means it was never converted into a popular science article. There still remain a technical or semi-technical, whatever you call, and many stories with good content turn out to be semi-technical, lack of popular appeal. Popular appeal means like you the first is the writing part, the word you are using, avoiding technical jargon, then the social connect, how it will be going to change the existing situation and benefiting the people in one way or the other way. And some story was only a state of art paper. Right. The researchers finding were totally missing. In it may be a cases where where the researcher has just begun with their research. So, but there was nothing new in them to tell to the people. And in many story, it is mainly the elaboration of experiment. They have taken a particular aspect and elaborating on that, the research design methodology or the result of experimentation, again, which has no meaning for me. As I showed you in my third slide, the data is collected until unless you give a meaning, it is of no use to me. Means because I'm talking to the journal people who has no uh, science background. And despite the good and very relevant research, the write-up could not be converted into a popular article, and it may be more of a report, totally lacking the popular palate. And it is more of a personal account of the researcher's, journey, uh, route to the how it came into the research. Again, interestingly, we found many such stories, which was not expected from our researchers. But anyway, they have misunderstood the word. Tell your story doesn't mean how you got into the research, because why I'm emphasizing many such stories, you know, were like that. How you got into the research is not the concern. It is about your research. After coming into the research, what you have done, that has to be reflected in your article. Okay. So when you begin, I think it is re-looking again your article. How you will do, you ask a few questions to yourself. What new will add my research to the existing knowledge? Something not known earlier, because that's why we are doing research. If it's already done, that means it has no element of novelty. So it may be pure or applied in terms of academic knowledge, method, product, protocol, etc. Okay, so I think this is a very, very important point. Once you start writing or thinking to write a story, you just first think on this aspect. What is new in my research, and what do the finding imply? Suppose if you are in the mid of your research, but some experiments and data has been collected and some trends is being shown. So what does it imply in terms of like way to toward which direction my research is leading to, in terms of in relation to my hypothesis or the objective of my research, and how do the finding impact society or the environment? Because now the entire research, or the you can say the development, we had this the paradigm is the sustainable development. So element of sustainability should be highlighted in terms of how your research will impact this finding, and or bridging the gap between science and society. And then what result drove you to such conclusion? You have to be logically convince your audience that saying this or arriving to at this conclusion, my basis was like this. And then there is a, how and why do you think the result are relevant to the society? And how did you arrive at those results? As I told you, how expensive, economical are the procedure, method, and approach? Again, the social aspect and the economic aspect, and how difficult is ever the procedure. If we had, suppose if we have standardized a protocol, so then how it is easier or more smoother than the earlier one, that comparison. And start with the quote. Undermine the obvious, means like as I told you, those secondary data which are very obvious, I think we each of us, you can presume, like ought to know. Don't waste time in adding those those basics into your article. And think of science as a tool of myth busting. Okay, there are many, especially in environmental science, or where the research where they have the science and society interface. I think there the objective should be, or your article should be saying that the science as a tool of myth busting, it should highlight and it should come out as this, and remind people of their childhood, because this is very important. Again, you are taking back to them, and saying something, connecting something, and then telling it about your research, and use the story of some celebrity characters or incidents, because it immediately generate the interest in the reader. I'll give you an example. Amitabh Bachchan has I think this is where you cannot engulf the water or the food which you are eating. So every time, and Myasthenia. I think this disease is called myasthenia. And it is a well-established disease, and protocol is there for the treatment also. So I was writing on that once. So immediately then when I scanned the literature, and on this aspect, I was trying to find out who are the people, well-known people who are affected. And I found Amitabh Bachchan. Since last 20 years, he's having this problem, and he's on the medication. And you can imagine, like 2 to 3 times in a day, he has to take that medicine. And look at his voice. I think he is the one of the best voice. So immediately on this topic, we find a connect of a commoner with this subject because of that celebrity. So this kind of approach or thing can be done in that case, and use of and call for action, participation if it's a field-based research, to be specific and be concise. uh, Means like you try to read it 2 3 times, your story, give to your friends and to your elders to read it, and take their suggestion very seriously in terms of making it more concise, more crispy, and precise in the sense. Okay. And then these are few examples. Sorry to say, I have no names for those people. So if this is a submitted as a AWSAR story, where we are saying write your research in a format. So do you think like this is a popular format? I think you cannot make out. Even I could not make out anything what my researchers want to say here. And even technically also, sorry to say that, this is another thing where the experimentation and all that, but you can see a lot of technical word, technical jargons, data, equation has been used in both the case. And I'll suggest all of you to read that one book, The Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. He has used in that highly technical subject only one equation of Einstein, energy and mass, energy and sorry, this matter relationship, that equation, famous, E is equal to mc square, I think, if I'm correct. So this is, I think, one of the best example of popular science writing, where he is giving you a very hardcore research without in a storytelling format, without using an equation or technical word. I think it's this book is available on Amazon and in the market. I think all of you must read that. I think it's one of the best book as a science communicator, I think I have gone through. So now let's come to some technique again, those insights, because ये गालिब साहब का शेर है. As a researcher, no, Ghalib Sahab was never appreciated during his own time, because उनका जो writing था वो it was so complicated that common people were not able to comprehend. So this is one of his share. Share means it's a couplet, you can say. He's saying, मगाज को बाग में जाने ना दीजिए कि नाहक खून परवानों का होगा. That means don't allow honeybee go into the garden. It will unnecessarily lead to the slaughtering of those parwana, means those insects. कि परवाना मीन्स जब हम मोमबत्ती जलाते हैं लाइट के सामने जो पतंगे आ जाते हैं, those insects, those are parwana. Shama means candle of life. So people were not able to appreciate if honeybee will go to the garden to collect the nectar, how it going to kill the parwana and all that. But similarly, our scientists are doing, our researchers are also doing most of the time. These are two journalists. They have approached to a scientist. They tell you what is the breakthrough of your research, for which we can write the story. So here the scientist is giving them that equation, which is written on the board. So can any common man, even those journalists, even if he's a science journalist, can make a meaning to that? It may a great meaning to me, to my peers group, but not to the common man. So we have to see that thing from that perspective. And this is again a share by Mir Taki Mir. They say "Aapne kaha," because we are doing, as a researcher, we are doing what "Aapne kaha" or "Aap hi samjhe." I am writing and only I can understand. मजा कहने का तब है, like it will be a more, you know, pleasurable, good, or better if what I'm writing and other is understanding it. मजा कहने का जब है जब एक कहे और दूसरा समझे. So this is like the crux of your article. You are writing, but you are not writing for yourself. You are writing for the common people, for the others. So इसके लिए this is necessary. So, and about the science communication. So now these are 3-4 more points which were added by Dr. Abdul APJ Kalam Saab when we had, you know, the public understanding of science communication international seminar here in 2011. They say like the basic purpose of science writing is to enthuse the citizen of the country about the science. You have to create an enthusiasm. Yes, science has a hope, science has a work. Now you can imagine, you can correlate the scenario when you don't have a faith in science. What will happen? Many people today, they have not taken vaccination because they don't have a trust of faith. They, instead of thinking in a scientific way, they have fallen myths and superstitions. Somebody is saying this is a vaccine, or many people are saying there is nothing like a coronavirus. Even if it's there, the vaccine is not going to help because it has been developed by such political party or with such ideology, especially. So science communication has a political connotation. Scientific to hai, but political bhi hai, and even in diplomatic, because you can see the how the output of this science has been, you know, used by to create a good relationship with many of the country. We have given, you know, the vaccine to many developing or underdeveloped country. And then because the purpose of science is that all people should get the benefit of science. And again, he has brought in the element of sustainability, because planet Earth is balanced on a very sensitive balance. If it is disturbed, I think there will be a problem. And again, the students should be encouraged to take up science as a career. So this is the overall, you can say, the purpose when you are writing an article for I think I am just okay. So so as I told you, science communication, bit complicated subject, because uh, we are modern science, lot of Western words, jo hamare like it is very difficult for our people to understand, and literature is available in foreign languages. That is again a problem. And for us also, the medium of education is a foreign language. We are writing for our own people, but we are using a foreign language. So here, many of our words, vocabulary, or synonyms, or you can say the क्या बोलते हैं उसको हिंदी में उसको बोलते हैं उपमा. We are giving analogies. So those are may not you find, but that's why this is like to add a creative angle to that. This is your you know, you can say the contribution, or can say one of the craftsmanship of popular science article, as a trait, as a skill that you need to acquire. And then scientific writing, again the difference, because here why I'm sharing this thing, because most of the things were, again, we could not make it out whether it is a technical paper or it's a popular paper. So scientific writing are published in a peer reviewed journal like Nature, American Chemical Association, Omega, and this is again And then that is only for scientific community, your peers group only. And it is, new knowledge. We can use technical term, can use table figure. So जनरली साइंस राइटिंग और साइंस जर्नलिज्म में हम लोग एक थोड़ा वो करते हैं. इन जर्नलिज्म द इनवर्ट पैरामीटर रेफर्स टू अ story structure where most important information or the what might even be considered the conclusion is presented first. The lead, we call it, the most important information about an event or your research: who, what, where, when, and why, and how. And then the main body of your thing, the crucial information expanding the topic, argument, controversy, story, evidence, background detail, and the tail, the extra information, interesting related item, and your own assessment. Means like the future consequences or benefit, or the there is a one important element, we call it a risk management. Means like what are the risks involved with that technology or method, whatever the crux of your research, and who and what and when and where they appear at the start of a story, followed by supporting detail and background information. So don't build up the story. There was a Raja, there was a Rani, and when they saw each other, they fall in love, and then they have kids. No, don't write that. That's a very old method of narration. So you might have seen breaking news kind of concept where they are telling only what has happened, and then you can go uh, backward. So basic of popular science writing is, this is by Einstein: think in your mother tongue. You need to have a basic understanding of science. So social science में यही problem होता है कि the it may come into contradiction with the basic science, fact of the basic science generally. तो logically जो एक correlation होना चाहिए वो उसमें lack हो जाता है. It's that not present. And he said, if you want to take science to the people, first communicate it with your grandparents. This is possible if you have a basic understanding of science. So this is very important. So think like you are writing, you are writing, about your research in such a way that your grandparents, your parents, or your brother, sister, your siblings, those who has no science background or who are not studying higher science, they should be able to understand that. And then tell your story again, because I'm emphasizing, tell your story, not your personal story, about your research, not how you get into the research. Make sure the paper has a main theme and a punchline. Avoid jumping, avoid to the prior, cite the original work required. Referencing is not required in a popular science paper until and unless it is such that you have totally left something that can be given, and explain the problem, why it is important, and share experimental detail that allow a reasonably educated person in the field to perform the experiment if it is about the methodology again, and analyze the data accurately and objectively, and provide a strong conclusion describing how your work moves the field forward, but be realistic. बहुत ज्यादा नहीं हो जाए, strong gratitude सारे में हुआ है. That means you have unnecessary, you are used lot of words. So if you are not in a position to complete your 200 and 2500 words, leave it there. It can be shorter, not necessary with the unnecessary words you are trying to create that thing. Okay. So title is very important, and crafting the title is one of the very important. As I told you, majority of cases the research, the title of your research is same for this article also. So that means, as I told you, you're using a lot of technical word when you decide about the title of your research, your thesis. It should not be the same here. It cannot be actually. So how will read your title, and how will you title be found, and how will you title be used, and what is being presented, and what is of interest to your audience, and what will be clear, what will catch attention, and what are the key descriptive terms. These are very important, and it should not be more than 20 words, grammatically sound, resonate with the your the thing which you are gaining, and don't claim it is like the first, the only, and avoid lasting listing potential applications if you are not sure about it, and avoid acronyms tends to have little meaning outside a specific area. So uh, uh, this is again stuck up, I think. Yeah. Uh, okay, now let's come to a case study. It is a very interesting, and till now, I think this is one of my best story which I have read about research finding, and which was appeared. You can see it was appeared with this photograph with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 column, and it is very important that getting this much space for a story in a newspaper. So here this was the story. I'll give you the brief. The story was the research was that the spinach like पालक होता है ना, हम लोग बचपन में हमारे माँ बाप हमको बहुत पालक खिलाते हैं कि इससे आपको ताकत आएगी. And there was a cereal also, papaya, who used to be, after taking that spinach, it become very strong, and this research was actually in Germany. The scientist has discovered that active compound which help you to get more strength in your muscles. Okay, so now this was the finding. So here he used a public memory in terms of to create a social connect, that papaya, right, eating spinach does boost power. Okay, so immediately it catches your attention. It nowhere it is written that it is a scientific or science article. They say scientists say vegetable has a steroid like chemical and must be on the list of prohibited items for athlete. Yesterday I was watching that film, Rashmi Rocket. So this film was like naturally, if the international guidelines, athletic guidelines are such that if a testosterone is beyond a permissible limit, then he should be restricted from playing the or participating in those events. But if it's naturally occurring, so that means implication क्या होगा कि पालक खाने से जो प्लेयर हमारे इंडियन, जो मेजोरिटी ऑफ देम आर vegetarian, if they are eating palak to get that muscular strength, even they will be now prohibited from taking part into those athletic competitions. Why? Because that's why this demand has come. So first is the you can see a social connect has been created, public memory, because this serial was very popular. So he has used that popular character, cartoon character, to give a title to his story. And then in the second line, he has given a corrects of his research and the social implication of that research. So that means, and what was the research? They spinach extraction, isolation of active compound which give a stimulus to the muscles, human muscles. So and that means, now this was the research, then it has given a methodology how it was isolated, very small, one small paragraph. And then the social implication that there are athletic association, they are demanding now that this the chemical should be in that category of that those tests which are performed on athletes. So that means the this chemical, they have also given the name of chemical, but it is not important. in the sense the name has been given, but the more emphasis is on the social connect and its implication of the research. So that means many vegetarian athlete will be now prohibited if this recommendation is accepted by International Athletic Association. So so this is the way. And now if we slightly go into the more detail of the construction of this article. So it say papaya right, sorry, uh, so right eating spinach does boost power. So this is the title. As I told you, social connect is there, public memory has been used. Scientists have recommended that the acetylcholine, this is the hormone, a hormone found in spinach, be included in the list of prohibition, prohibited list of the drug. So it is a natural occurring chemical or a steroid, and vegetarian people are rely more on that. So this is the social connect. And something relatable, public memory has been used, something relatable in the sense. Then the outcome of the research, a study involving 36 athletes were carried out, where they were trained 3 times per week, blah blah blah, and participant was split. Yeah, this is the methodology they have given. Something relatable in the sense. New Delhi was New Delhi beating up, scientists, and as the Free University, Berlin Institute of Pharmacy has recommended that Adjectives, a hormone found in speech, be included in the list of prohibited substances for athletes. Now you can imagine. Okay. And then the less importance, but to make story more interesting, and the relevancy of specific group. So this is uh, uh, some agency, international agency or committees which are formed on the athletes, and local, national and international implication. So here look at like what will be the implication if this was something written by a science writer, science journalist, not from India, but if a Indian science journalist is covering the story, he might have definitely will give its implication on that aspect of Indian athletes, where majority of people are not non-vegetarian. Okay, so you can make it out clearly. And then this was again one story. That means the change of heart diagnostic number to make sense of ECG report. That means the health of your health status of your heart can be uh, predicted by ECG report. So you don't have to go to a more complicated procedure to check the health of your heart. So this was the again article. This was again a finding where on ECG a method has been of interpretation has been worked out, so that before directly going to those complicated process, this report can also give you a lot of clue. Then yes, this was again about a product, ये American Chemical Society में था, जिसमें like the stress of your stress level can be assessed, not again by non-invasive method, by your sweat, by your scoop, and also by your urine. So that means you don't have to use an invasive device, and it was a kit which is very handy. So it was a product based on a research which has been come out, and this was again given as a popular article informing people. And you can see the different title has been given by different device is the work for hormone based stress monitoring, a new home testing kit measuring stress level in sweat and blood. So this you can imagine, it is as a lifestyle product, it is very useful, and this information, this is itself is useful, especially in a modern society, in an urban society, where we have this has been added into a health parameter measuring your stress level. So this way you can correlate with the requirement. Okay, so opening paragraph, setting the hook, then opening with a quote. As a novel, dialogue is inherently interesting. Set the scene, use descriptive detail to make reader feel they are in action. Begin with an anecdote, stories draw reader. These are very, usual guidelines or in fact, there is no hard and fast rule for popular science writing. It depends on the content what you have in your hand and how you will present it to the to a people or to the commoner who don't have a scientific background, and use the scene descriptive detail to make reader feel that they are in action, in the sense they are also going through that journey with the as you are progressing in your article. So this is it's a good idea to balance heavy data with lighter, more engagement content, and draft an outline before writing the body to ensure frequent alteration between data description, example, anecdotes. I think if you look at that Papaya article, in that he has not used any data except the word for that hormone that which has a you can say has a which they demand for banning that. So a conclusion should make the reader feel that this is the time he or she spent reading the article was in fact his time is well spent, and in other words, the reader should feel satisfied by the experience. And a truly success conclusion will also inspire the reader to make additional information about the topic. So this is so if you can explain it simply, if you cannot explain it simply, that means you don't have understood it well enough. This is again by the Einstein. यानी कि अगर आपको अपनी बात अपनी रिसर्च के बारे में साधारण शब्दों में अगर आप नहीं बता पाए हैं, तो इसका मतलब आपको अपने रिसर्च के बारे में खुद भी समझ में नहीं आया. तो इसके लिए ये just to prove yourself that you have understood your research very well, I think then writing for not the peers group is not a challenge for you. So best of luck for your thing. And some of these illustrations just to make the article lighter, you can use it. I just share because we have been developing, generating content for this corona pandemic. So here this was because it was a flu virus when the coronavirus was came. So this was a new finding. So it was presenting the basic research was given here. So he said like the in a cartoonic form, he's saying the virus, because at that time the vaccine was not there. So the virus, these are the other 6 viruses which is being given a lead by this coronavirus. Say now this is a time for me of unlimited opportunities to rule the world, because there was no vaccine. So this was so it can create some lighter movement with the serious content also. This is and this is again like making a difference between both the SARS and viruses, the SARS-1 or SARS-2. Sorry, SARS and SARS-1. He is saying like SARS because they are cousins. They are saying he's my cousin SARS-1, but he's a bit dumb. I'm smart. Why I'm smart? Because I got a additional site of replicating myself, which SARS-1 was not having. Means I now I can replicate in this throat cell also. At that time I am not even my symptoms are not symptoms that disease are not coming in full bloom. That means I can make one person carrier, yeah, but which my cousin was not able to do that. So that's why I'm much smarter again. And so these are 2 viruses just relaxing, and there is a plus and minus tail because there is no male female. So he's saying the female version, because I used it that way. Are we safe now, dear? This was the time when the this was not there. I mean, the vaccine was not there. So he said, yes, no vaccine, no evolutionary pressure. Because evolutionary pressure कब आएगा? When you have a pressure to modify or to mutate yourself, when there is a vaccine. So yes, no vaccine, no evolutionary pressure to find a new host. Just relax, darling. So we have no problem, because, but that was the time when the vaccine was not there. So this is again a comic way of telling these are the viruses, yellow fever, chicken, rabies, and all that. They say, I'm very sad. The HIV virus is saying, I'm very sad. No respect for oldies. Corona is being given a status of new deity, that is a Corona Maya, because you might have heard people, instead of going having a faith in science, they fall, on myth and superstitions by building up the temple, worshipping the imaginary Corona Maya. Huh. So this is like depicting how a man can be a carrier without asymptomatic person, positive, but then it can be a carrier. So this is the way artistically, illustration wise, you can do it. So these are some of other hardcore fact, technical fact, which were explained through this cartoon or through illustration. So this was like one thing which was the most appreciated one about the symptom of corona, because when you have a corona positive, there is loss of taste and taste buds. So he's saying this food has no taste. Husband is saying to wife. So wife is saying, you have a early symptoms of corona. Forget about the taste. Go for the test. Okay. So this is the हमारा जो ethos है, हमारा जो cultural वो है, like husband wife का जो ये खट्टा मीठा जो वो चलता है, उसको बोलते हैं that conversation, that can also be used to explain some of vital aspect of your research. Okay, so these are again this is my, again I'm concluding with Galib Sahab, because uh, uh, he said, hey, दुनिया में और भी सुखनवर बहुत अच्छे, there are many writers in the world, हाँ, but कहते हैं कि गालिब का अंदाज़े बयां हो, means he has his own unique style of storytelling. So this is my wish. You, all of you, should develop your own style of writing like a Ghalib, but with a popular approach. So with this word, thank you very much, I think, for listening me. If you have any question, I think we'll take it up later after Dr. Kollegala Sharma is over with his discussion or presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Bharat.
Thank you. So now I will request Dr. Kollegala Sharma sir. Meanwhile, Tyagi sir, you can have look on the Q&A section.
Yeah.
If you want to respond, you can take. Over to you, sir. Kollegala sir.
Tyagi ji.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. You have done my job much easier. Thank you. It was very exhaustive, and I think the the participants will benefit from this talk, mainly because it gives a whole perspective of what science communication should be and how a writing should be. And most of our experience have also been the same, what have been distilled together by Tyagi ji, especially with regard to the essays that we see in the AWSAR. I would also not call this as an AWSAR competition, but most essays have been written as sort of a competitive spirit. Okay, and that means in most cases, people have just looked at what essays have got the prizes and tried to emulate the same thing. So that is not what a writer should be. A writer should be independent. If I write something and if Tyagi ji writes something, we should be able to identify from that writing that it is Tyagi ji who has written that. And that kind of a stamp of person or stamp of the technique, stamp of creativity should be available. And in this case, can I make the presentation?
Yes, sir, you can.
What I will be doing is that since we have got the details and the basics of what science communication, how an article should be, how it should be opened, and what should we do, I'll go to the next stage. So let's look at how we do the mistakes. Okay, we all do mistakes in spite of 50 years or 60 years or 70 years of this thing. Even when we write now, we do commit a lot of mistakes. And what kind of mistakes do we write? So this is an opportunity for you people to look at your writings again and do those corrections which probably you would have missed. And Dr. Tyagi has already highlighted those corrections that are required. So besides those things, there are a few things that we need to keep in mind. And this is what we need to keep in mind whenever we write something. Is my writing good? I don't know how many of you have read your articles or the write-ups that you have written. And if on the second time and third time on reading, if you feel that it is fine, then you are wrong. Maybe if my writing, if I have written it, what should I do to improve it? The first thing is these are some questions that we have to ask. The thing is my writing good? So what do you mean by good? Good is first, it should not just sound good for me. So it must sound good for others also. So who are the others? Generally, when we write, we look at a lot of things, and generally when we speak something to people during conversation, it will be with a group of known people, so the peer group. Similarly, when we write something on science, generally the language used is from the technical side, and therefore whatever, whether it is in the conversational mode or any other mode that we write, we tend to write in a technical way. And that is something that we have to keep in mind. The popular science has to be to a different audience. And who are the different audience? Tyagiji already said that the different audience is your grandfather. So it's not just grandfather, it could also be your colleague in the university in a different department. Let me just give an example. When I started writing on molecular biology in Canada, so one of the things I was asked to when I was participating in a workshop as a student was that who are your audience? So I told that my audience was one of the mathematics professors who was sitting at the back. People were surprised. Why? Why are you choosing him? I told him, the reason is the mathematics professor doesn't know what is molecular biology. So what I am trying to do is to tell about what we have learned to someone who doesn't know much about that. So that's all science communication is. Whether I do my research or whether I'm speaking about the research of someone else, what we are trying to do is there is something new information or new understanding or new knowledge that we have gained, which we have understood, and then we are trying to communicate the same thing to a different audience. So we have to speak in the language of the audience. This, how we do this is very easily explained by Dr. Tyagi. He said that you connect, you must first have a social connect, use the public memory, and based on that, you start writing your article. That's fine. And secondly, whatever I have written, does it fit into the platform or the media or the format that I have decided? I wanted to write a popular science article. What I have written, can I call it as a popular science article? Or is it a drama? Did I want to write a drama or a play, or did I want to write a poetry? If that is what I wanted to, does it sound like that? So these are some of the questions that we have to ask. The third one is, as a scientist, we should always ask, when we write, we sometimes get overwhelmed by the language, overwhelmed by our emotions and all these things, but still we have to have our facts right. How the facts that I have mentioned here are right. Okay, and it is not just the statistic 2 plus 2 or 3 plus 2. It could also be that when a particular gene influences another gene, how does it influence the gene, the other one? Is it influencing it to do better or to do worse? So these are some of the questions that we will have to ask, even if the effect is either enhancing or retarding, whatever it is. How much is the effect? Is it significant or non-significant? So these kind of answers should also be there. And when we give these answers, we should be very clear about the findings that we have in our research. Then lastly, how will it affect my reader? Which means, will my reader enjoy it? So if he has to enjoy, what should I do? The first thing is, here is something that I picked up from the WhatsApp medium, where a lot of this has been circulated as a popular science. Okay, this is meant for general circulation, for general people, about an information about the kind of mirror that we find in Kerala. But if you look at it, I would say we could even further improve this. There are two things. One, like I said, we tend to be technical because we speak in the language of scientists. Look at the one sentence that we have here. Metallographic studies have indicated. What is metallographic studies? How do a person who doesn't know anything about the physics or material science understand by this? So we will have to explain that, or we will have to write in a different way that why do these mirrors are so highly reflective? Metal mirrors is the question that we ask. Okay, and the metal properties have been studied. That's one. Then secondly, skillful casting. Now these kind of usages are called as euphemisms. Skillful casting, what do you mean by skillful casting? One, and unless we explain, we will not be making any sense here. Skillful casting. Then optimization, what do you mean by optimization? Is it mixing of different metals in specific proportions, or is it mixing at a specific time when you are casting, or is it getting the right amount of or right kind of metals from the right place? What is optimization? We don't know. So these kind of euphemisms we use a lot in science, and please avoid that. If my writing has all these things, I would look at it again and then remove those things and write it in a different way. Sorry. Secondly, is my writing good? The simple thumb rules are this. Have I followed the basics of chosen format, like the inverted pyramid format that Dr. Tyagi was speaking about, or a open format in a feature? You will have to check again. And then the language. Each language has its character. If I'm writing in English, in a common man's English, it is an active voice. And the science or the technical language has a passive voice. Please check all passive voices. It is not necessary that you have to be very strict and remove all passive voices, where sometimes it might also help you to retain some. But as far as possible, keep active voice in all your sentences and check the verbs and tenses. This is very important when you resubmit your essay. This is the grammar part. And then, is my writing simple? This is the most important part. So simple doesn't mean that when we have a dialogue format, it doesn't make the writing very simple. So the dialogue format only changes your presentation. But is the concept explained in a simple manner? That is the question that you will have to ask. Lastly, the length. Is it too lengthy? Can I still cut it down? Yes, we were asked to write 1300 words or 1800 words. I have written 1801. So if I remove one word, that should be okay. No, no, that's not what I'm telling you. Okay. If I read my essay again, how many sentences are there which are not necessary? Can I remove them? And if I remove them, can I still make sense after removing those things? So this is very important. This makes your write up much more brief, much more compact, and gives you a little more scope to be more creative. Okay. And how do we do this? Look for repetitions. We tend to speak too much. Okay. When we speak this, we tend to also repeat the same thing many times over and in a similar way. So please look at this. If things are repeated 10 times, one after the other, it is boring. If I am saying if 10 times, and obviously you start sleeping. So I will have to be very careful if I have to keep you awake, if I have to keep my reader awake, that even when I have to say if, I have to use an alternative word or a synonym to say the same thing, to convey the same meaning. So even if you have to repeat a few facts, even if you have to repeat a few things to a few concepts, please see that they are not redundant, in the sense they are not repeated in the same manner. They are put together in a different way, so that the reader doesn't feel that he is cheated. Okay. Then, in spite of all these things, your story may not read right. There may be some thread missing. Okay. And that missing part, will missing link is your responsibility to find out and add to that. All these things will make the reader very comfortable in reading your article. Okay. Now, how do I look at what are the things that I have to keep in mind? One, the places, names, dates. These are very important if you are mentioning how to be authentic. Okay. If it is inevitable, you have to get them right, and you have to keep on checking, double check, triple check. That's very important. Then there is something, if you're reading, there is something that strikes you, something strange here. If it looks or if it sounds strange to you, it will sound stranger to your readership. If you can't understand one concept or one sentence, then your reader will be confused much more. So therefore, please check the meaning or the way that you have put, or with the references, cross references, whether you have conveyed the meaning perfectly or not, and then go about that. Okay. Removing jargons and unnecessary technical words is a little difficult. You need an to practice this, but it is not impossible, because I'll show you a few examples subsequently. It is very necessary that we avoid these things to keep friendly, to be friendly with our readers. If there is an explanation necessary, please give an explanation, and always look for local examples or something that strikes the audience mind, and that way you can catch the attention of the readership. And then the language, that has to be simple. If you're writing in Kannada, if you're writing in Hindi, it should be everybody's language, and it cannot be a the language of someone who is very I should say a delete in Hindi, a delete in this, or a PhD in linguistics. Oh, that is not the language that we need to write popular science about. Here are some examples that I am giving. So we have looked beyond billions of light years away from Earth. Still, sun is a long unsolved burning mystery. Okay. Now, when we look at this, there should not be an impression that the sun is billions of light years away from us. Okay. So how far is the sun? Is he really billions of years away from us, or only within billion years? a billion light year. And what is a light year? Have I explained it earlier in my sentence, or am I just introducing this word here? So these are some questions that we need to ask. Okay, a recent work published in the Astrophysical Journal. For scientists like us or researchers, a work published sounds very, very simple. But for a reader who is not very familiar with the scientific world, what is a work published? Nobody knows. So what does a scientist do? People don't even understand. So it is our responsibility to put this in a simpler way. How do we put it? We can always say that in a research paper published. So it is not the work, research paper published. Okay, that everybody can easily understand. That's something that we have to do. And similarly, the technical words like granular cells, these are called granular cells because these are specific areas on sun's surface which appear different from the surrounding, and therefore they are called granular, so separate. Okay, and they were able to measure the thickness of the granular cells. That's fine. The technical word sometimes have to be explained and then used as it is. You can explain the granular cells in the beginning, but then subsequently you can start using granular cells in your article, and your reader will immediately relate to the explanation that has been given to this. Secondly, look at this asymmetry in the horizontal and vertical directions. This is very simple for a physicist. It makes very easy sense. But how do we explain this? Unless I understand what a physicist means by asymmetry in the horizontal and vertical directions, I will not be able to explain easily. Now, how do I explain? It's very simple. The horizontal cell expands unevenly all over. So its expansion is not even. A ball expands, I'm giving an analogy here, a ball expands evenly in all dimensions, okay? Evenly throughout. Whereas a granular cell expands unevenly in any direction. So it might be a lot in one direction or a less in another direction. This is called asymmetry. So once we understand, it is easier for us to explain that in a simple one single sentence. So the lesson is we need to understand what we are talking about. Secondly, these are actually examples I picked up from some of the exercises that we conducted. I am not picking it up from the AWSAR essays, mainly because I leave it to you to do the changes here. We found that some species increased in pigmentation over time, but some showed little change or even declined in pigmentation over time. Now look at this over time, repeating. Now, how can we change this? Can we change over time into something so that the meaning doesn't change? Meaning doesn't change. And the same meaning is conveyed to the reader. Okay, to understand why species differed in their response to global change. Okay, we looked at the amount of ozone and temperature again over time. And suddenly they comes here. So now after quotation. Okay, so instead of they, it should be that Koski and team compared the UV pigment levels of the same species collected at different times at a particular location, and see if there is a change in the levels of UV pigmentation over time. You see how over time has been repeated here several times. That we will have to keep a control of. Data on temp, okay, abbreviations. We may be very familiar with abbreviation. We scientists are very fond of abbreviations, like even AWSAR is a abbreviations that we use. But then this using acronyms and abbreviations in a popular science article does actually keep the reader a little bit away. So he will not understand what is this. Is this temporary? Is this temperature? Is it temperament? We don't know. So we need to always write fully, clearly, without using acronyms as far as possible. Excuse me. we have our own terminology, set of terminologies that we use, like negative impact on pollination. Okay, can't we say reduce pollination? It's much simpler and easily understood by the people. Okay, and that's something. Similarly, adversely impacting food availability may hamper availability of food, would be much better. Okay, I'm not saying that this is how you have to change. These are the words you have to use, but this is how you can always make changes, where instead of hamper, you find out from the thesaurus any other word that fits in there and use it. So your writing becomes much easier, much user friendly, rather than becoming technical. Over the past 75 years, pigments that absorb UV radiations have increased by around 2% in flowers all over the world. This is what you can write about the second sentence that you have there. Over the past 75 years, an average of 2% increase per year in global UV absorbing pigmentation of flowers has occurred. Now you could see when I read this, I struggle to read also. And that is because the passive sentence. Whereas on the other hand, over the past 75 years, pigments that absorb UV radiations have increased by around 2% in flowers all over the world. So reading is much easier. You see the difference between the active and passive sentence. And for a reader, when he is reading something strange, something which he is not familiar with, then this matters a lot. This is one of the reasons why most of us would stop reading a textbook halfway or research articles halfway if we are not interested in it. Okay, and that is because the reading is like this. So if it is an interesting reading, it keeps linking with the next sentence, linking with the next concept and all, and it keeps you engaged throughout. So your writing should be in such a way that when you write, so each paragraph should lead to the next paragraph. It should not be separate. Most of you have written in your essays, you give a subheading and then jump to another point. No, why can't we link this? It's the same research that we are doing, and the research has your thought process has a sort of link, and that link has to come through in your write-up, and that is what we call as storytelling. Storytelling doesn't mean telling about myself, telling about someone else or anything like that. Storytelling is simply this, that the facts and the concepts that you present are presented in such a way that each new information leads to another story, and that information leads to another one. So ultimately, the reader doesn't feel that he has got so much of information together, but he has got good information and he is satisfied. And that's how we have to do. You heard Dr. Tyagi speaking, and his presentation was linked so beautifully well that you never felt bored about that, right? So that is how the question should be there. Then we will also have to question ourselves after our writing, that has I answered this question? Did we ask the question how much a 2% change in UV pigmentation can affect the bee's perception of flowers? Because it cannot be presumptive result. Okay, it cannot be something in the potential effect, like Tyagi said. Has this effect really happened, or are we predicting this? If we are predicting, we should be telling the people that this is only a prediction. It might happen, it might not happen also. But for scientists, it is a fear that they have. That should be very clear. And that is what because somebody had asked a question, sir, if we do not have a specific definitive result and the impact, the social impact is only can be found only at a future this one. So how do we explain this? You can say that this is what we guess the impact could be, but we don't know. Oh, there is nothing wrong in saying don't know. Okay, that's something that we have to do this. So these are some thumb rules that I would like to give. Like I said, prefer active voice over passive voice. Okay, verbs, singular, plural, present and past tense. Bacteria move over water. Is it bacteria moves over water or bacteria move over water? We should be very clear. It is bacteria is a plural and therefore move over water. So these grammatical errors affect a lot of reading in AWSAR. Okay, Indian English. So if you are using haldi, now how is it written in Roman letters? We will have to be very clear. Similarly, when we write a binomial nomenclature, it should always be in a font different from the regular font that is used. So that's why we usually use a italics font for that. Okay. Unnecessary usage of adjectives should be avoided. It's not necessary that we use adjectives to make it okay. It's only the political speeches where a lot of adjectives are used to highlight a person. Okay, but in science, it's not necessary that adjectives are used, but use the similes and other examples. And in the language, use techniques like personification, but don't overdo that. Many people do this personification because many stories that we have seen start with I am so and so. Okay, what is this so and so? It is gravity. Now, can gravity, a concept, can gravity be a person? Yes. It's a fantastic imagination. I would say hats off to the creative genius if you can. But then when we continue with the same word, somewhere we come to a place where we will have to explain something else and this analogy doesn't fit. Okay, the gravity cannot say, yes, I am doing this. Gravity is supported by something else. Then you run into a problem. So then you resort to some other analogy or some other simile, and that keeps the reader confused. So what you have to do is the format that you use, whether it is dialogue format, whether it is the first person format, or whether it is a story format, whatever it is, you keep in mind the subject also should fit into that. And secondly, if you are using an analogy, let's say I am using balloon as an analogy for an expanding granular cell. Throughout my article, the analogy should be the balloon. I cannot say balloon here and then go and say watermelon somewhere else. So that will not do. So therefore, this kind of uniformity in using analogy should be there. Okay. Punctuations, I will not say anything. Another thing that we do is in science writing, use a lot of parentheses and abbreviations, which we need to avoid. So parentheses are, hindrance to reading. So avoid parentheses. That's one. Secondly, check dates, spellings of proper names. Okay. And I had a difficulty in publishing my names because in most of my articles, the name would change. Either it would be KVS Sharma or ASK Sharma or whatever it is. So finally, I had to simplify it and change my name into Kollegala Sharma. So let that situation not come to other scientists. Okay, let the scientists be known by their specific names and this. Wherever possible, provide common names for binomials. How many people understand what is Ossimum sanctum? And if you say the same thing that it is Tulsi, people will immediately understand. You say that Tulsi, which is also called Ossimum sanctum, then yes, people get two information, connect the two, and this is what Tyagi said, use public memory. Okay, for the public, the memory is Tulsi. And for scientists, it is Osimum sanctum. So linking the two would always be much, much easier. And what is hibiscus chinensis? Find out. Avoid repetition of facts, words, or phrases. You have what is called as thesaurus, which you can put into a good use wherever possible. Have, unless it depicts a specific concept or identity, all other words can have synonyms. And when you use synonyms, it will also give you a lot more scope to change your writing in an interesting way. For example, you can play with different types of ornamentation. Alliterations can be used. Alliterations is rhyming sentences. So that also can be used if you know a lot of words and other things. Then uniformity in spellings is another important thing that I don't have to tell the researchers who publish research papers about these things, but these are also necessary as in research papers in popular science writing also. Okay, now storytelling. What do we mean by storytelling? It is not that Sharmaji came, Sharmaji wrote, Sharmaji said something. No, not that. Okay, here is a few examples that I'm giving. These are made up. Okay, these are not from the research papers. Let's say curcumin is a fat soluble yellow pigment present in turmeric. Simple sentence, straight sentence. Okay, it was first extracted by Dr. So-and-so and in so-and-so year, is now identified as an anti-cancer agent. Fantastic, perfect. Now, how do I change it into a story? Okay, let's go to the next sentence. The first yellow color of haldi. Look at this. If I'm using haldi from the popular memory, so I am creating a story here. Okay, setting a stage for the story. Okay, that stays for days on your hand could cure cancer. If you have touched haldi, the curcumin, then you will know that it stays your hand for long, long time. Okay, yes, curcumin, which gives turmeric that color, is a yellow pigment that is also antioxidant, a property that helps body to fight cancer. I have explained. It's a bit longer, but then you create a story here, bring in a lot more things. Okay. In so and so year, so and so teased or separated it out. I have used two words. You can always say teased or separated it out instead of extracted. Okay, extracted again is a term that we use in scientific terminologies, and what we do is we separate this component from rest of the things, and that's what we do that. So you can say that and named it as curcumin. Okay. Or you can also alternatively write curcumin came to light in the year so and so, when Dr. So-and-so could separate, tease out, purify, prepare it in pure form. So now you get a hang of how your sentences can be changed to sound better. Okay, you have lots of words that you can use for same concept to give the same idea, and how best you use those similar meaning words is also very important. Or you can be a little more poetic. Okay, all the perfumes of Arabia can't remove the stain, Othello said of blood. Okay, long back, and this is from Shakespeare's drama, and he could have said the same on curcumin. The yellow color in the familiar haldi may not be easily washed away by water, but it can surely help wash off cancerous cells from the body. What we can do, what we are trying to do here in this sentence is that we are addressing a little different audience. Okay, audience who are familiar with the English literature and other things. So you can play with your facts. You can play with your facts. I don't think all of you cannot write these three different sentences with the same facts. It is possible. What why we are hesitant is that we don't know how to go about. That's it. So please apply yourself immediately, and that will help you all these things. Simplest thing is you tell a story in an interesting way. Tell whatever you want to in an interesting way, but don't use the words that you use in your laboratory, and that will help you a lot. Okay. Technical is not just about words, it is about the way we write. Okay. Look at this. This is about the biodata introduction of a senior scientist. Now, how many, this is in a popular book that I found, and how many of us would understand this? Okay, research interests include protein folding, molecular chaperones, and heat shock proteins, molecular basis for lens transparency, cataract and keratinitis, DNA-based diagnostics. Can we simplify these so that people understand what the scientist is actually doing? Okay, nanobiology, photoacoustic spectroscopy, that is the kind of writing we need to do, and it is possible. It addresses the role of small heat shock proteins in gene expression, cell division, differentiation, and apoptosis. Now, I would put it in one single sentence like this. He works to find out what small proteins called heat shock proteins produced in cells or how small proteins called heat shock proteins produced in the cells affect the different life cycle of the cell at the different times of life cycle of the cell or the life of the cell. Because what we are talking about is how the cell divides, heat shock protein, how okay. Lastly, same thing. Remember, when we read our own article, we are not supposed to be the readers. The readers are supposed to be someone else. So we have to keep in mind all those things. Here is somebody said the phenomenon is non-trivial. Okay, non-trivial is generally easy to understand, but why should we use this contorted kind of usage? We could always use the phenomenon is serious. Okay, so these kind of small changes would definitely help you. Would definitely help you in updating your essay, and that is what I think Dr. Tyagi would also expect, and I would also expect from all 300 of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I know that you had got infected with COVID, and also you have given time for our towards this session. So I tried to answer the queries which is general in nature in Q&A section. So I think we have few more meetings in the line.
Rajay, you just give me access to my camera?
You have already access, sir.
No.
Acha, ek
No,
minute.
no. Yeah, now it is.
So I tried to answer the question which were general in nature. So I will quickly go. Can you see the question, sir? Kollegala, sir? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we can see the questions.
So I will just read out for you.
Yeah.
We will take few questions.
Many of them has asked that can we share this the today's recording?
That we will see. We will try to get it done. We will try to get it uploaded in the website.
Yes.
And
there's one question. They say if we write a title in four, 5 sentences. I think the case study which I gave you, it was there was a one-line title, and then in second line that the some more clue or correlation, giving a correlation with the title, you can say explanatory or some content was given in that, so you can do. But going to 4 or 5 lines means you are writing a poetry, not a title. So better avoid that. It is better until unless it required. I think you just keep it to one line. Okay.
One line, a maximum of 5 to 6 words if it is possible.
Yes.
And one important query regarding that is a technical one.
Yeah.
Where they are going to resubmit the article. After this webinar, you need to log in with your login credential in AWSAR website. You will get the resubmission page, because we cannot open it for the general public. So if you are selected, you are in the selected list in the top 300 participants, you need to log in and you will get the link activated for resubmission.
Yeah.
And all the term and condition, which were stated earlier in our website, that will be the same, like word limit and all.
Yeah. And you need not write your credentials again.
Yeah, you need not to write.
Yes.
You need
And
not to write your credentials.
Yeah, in the story, nowhere your name of your institute and your name should be mentioned, because it will be going to again to some examiner. So your credential should not in your story. You should not close your description. Even don't mention the name of the institute or your guide name, because many of them, as I told you, to showing a gratitude. It is, you are not submitting a report, actually you are writing an article. We are showing this gratitude towards institution or your guide is not required.
And regarding declaration, no declaration is required in the story. That should be made clear. No declaration in any form with your name, your affiliation, your guide name, that is not required in your story. That will going to eat your word limit.
Yes.
So we have already taken your consideration while submitting your form. So there is no requirement of giving declaration in the story.
Yeah, and one question was like, because you are writing a popular story, so there is no need to give the reference as a secondary data. It's not required. That means it is obvious. It's known to the people. And also, you have to write that references in your own word. You don't have to pick up that word by word. Only then it's a question of plagiarism and all that comes. And they all the story which will be resubmitted, they will be again have to go through this test of plagiarism. So avoid that thing. So don't mention references. Don't use verbatim picking up those sentences from any article. Write in your own sentences.
There will not be any extension of word limit.
Yeah.
All the submission guidelines, criteria will be the same.
Yes.
There is no mandatory to have published paper.
Yes. There is a one question, Bharat. There's a, if the work is not published, how it should be written in an article? Because you are not disclosing the technical detail. You are writing only, about your research, the basis of your research and what you have done. So there may be only few cases. Until unless you disclose the actual finding, the article will not make a meaning. But till that time, I think it depends on your smartness, that without giving your those part where you can have a copyright or patent, we don't disclose that. But the other aspect, I think
there is a misconception about patent and copyrights with most of the people, that if they disclose if they write something about that, about their research, it will impact this. So it is like this. You can say, I'm making Uppitu, or I'm making what's say Golgappa, okay? But then how are we making Golgappa is the patentable information, and that information you are not giving. And what is in the Golgappa also you don't say, but you are saying that it is different from other Golgappa. That's it. So that doesn't actually make your information, the patentable information disclosure. That's it. But if you are going to delineate, okay, this will be the color other than this, and all the specific details of your Golgappa, that is the thing. So be careful about that. You can still write without disclosing patentable information. We find a lot of research papers also where though they have submitted or they are planning to publish these things, the patentable information is not disclosed, but important findings are discussed. So this is something that we say, for example, a vaccine is invented or discovered or made, but then how it is made is not disclosed, but they would always say that based on an epitope. What epitope you don't know, but then based on this epitope, the immunogenicity of this vaccine was such and such a this one. So that's an information that is there and which is not patentable, but whereas the patentable information is with them. So these kind of things we'll have to keep. And there is one more question that I found: can we use illustrations, copyrighted illustrations? You can to illustrate. If you are using that, yes, give a reference. No
but
issues.
not
But
the animation,
not
because
many.
it is a one or two.
One or two.
Yeah,
not many.
and also not the animation. How you can, because it is a article written form, so don't add that animation. It's only the images.
Yeah, images.
Yes.
You can also use Hindi phrases, poems, any poetry, cartoon, science tune, images, whatever you feel, you can use that.
Yes, you can use that.
And I have written the mail ID also in the chat box. It's connect.awsar@gmail.com. You can write your queries. The last date of submission will be 2nd or 3rd of this next month, February, approximately a week. No image numbers are limited. You can put a comic also, but it should be not a comic book. It should reflect your story also. Okay. And the final result will be disclosed in the last week of mid of February, and result will be given on 28th of the February. So thank you very much, sir. Kollegala sir, Tyagi sir, and thank you, participants. You can write your queries. You can write your queries to connect.awsar@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you.